morning, everybody. Welcome to TLDCast. Wow, it's been another Monday morning. I hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving. It seems like forever since we've done a TLDcast. It is Monday. That means Monday is going to be all about data today. And if you're wondering why I'm looking around at certain things, it's because I'm trying to figure out if everything's working okay. So it's all good. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Hope your weekend was great. Hope your Thanksgiving was even better. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up for you this week. And better than that, we have an even more exciting day today to kick off the week. We have my old friend from a long time ago, Mr. Steve Wexler. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here.
I'm so glad we reconnected and you were able to join us, because data and data visualization is a big deal these days across the board, as you obviously know. And before we let you jump into your presentation a little bit, one of the things we like to do here on TLDcast is just let our guests introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who Steve Wexler is.
Oh, okay. So I even have a slide. Shall I show that, or should I just go informal?
Part of your presentation, we could do that too, or you just absolutely show it. We're very informal.
Hey, no problem. And I'm going to try not to bore you to death with PowerPoint, but so that is a picture of me in a suit. I am the founder and principal and sole employee of Data Revelations. I was Tableau's first Iron Viz Champion, and I'm not expecting a lot of everybody to know what Tableau is, but it's a pretty potent data visualization tool, and the Iron Viz thing is like think Iron Chef, but for data visualization. I'm also a 5-time Tableau Zen Master, and I need to make clear that that's a real thing. If you know the Tableau community, if you know what it's about, that's actually a reasonably high honor to be named that. If you don't know that's a real thing, and you hand somebody a business card and it says Tableau Zen Master, they think you're a complete tool. And I would think, oh God, what jerk calls himself a Zen Master? Jesus, but it's a real thing. Although within the data visualization community, or data visualization world, the thing I'm most proud of is being one of 3 authors that wrote the big book of dashboards. And Brent, I've been doing this for now like 12 and a half years, and in fact started in data visualization around survey data with my old stomping grounds, the e-learning guild. And I'll even show some stuff from those good old halcyon days of trying to get people to understand the survey data. And I did some pretty bad work back then, and hopefully I'll make some amends on that. In any case, when we get to it, this will be a presentation about why you should visualize data and how not to screw it up too much. And trust me, I know a lot about screwing it up. So trying to make sure that others who go down this path don't make the mistakes I did.
Outstanding. Thanks for doing that and letting me just kind of interject here and do the informal thing before we jump into your presentation. I just want I can fill in a little bit of the gaps for those of you in the chat. Luis is LOLing because Luis and I both know Steve from our days at the e-learning guild, and Steve was with us there for a little while as well. Actually, Steve was the one that hired me into the e-learning guild in the early days. And so we go way back. It was like 2007-ish, 6-ish, 2006.
Earlier than that. It's actually 1957 is when we first met. So
yeah, we go way back. And I didn't say it, Craig. I swear I didn't say it. All these chat room inside jokes. Sorry, Steve. I'm notorious for saying back in the day, and I'm trying really hard to not say it all the time. So they get on me when the opportunity arises. And they think I'm going to say it, but then I don't. Anyways, data visualization. So let me just sort of set the stage here for everybody a little bit more as as well, as far as all of the data. The reason why I wanted Steve to come in and talk about data for multiple reasons. Obviously, since data is a big deal, needing to understand it, needing to visualize it better. But it's interesting that our keynote presenter, our opening keynote presenter at TLDC 19, Trish Ewell, met Steve at a data visualization conference. And that was sort of what triggered all of this. And I said, hey, I just noticed on the program that Steve was presenting. I'm like, did you get a chance to meet Steve? She's like, oh yeah. It's Steve.
No,
like,
she came to one of my workshops. She was great. She was really great to have in there.
Yeah. And so she's going to be presenting at TLDC 19, and that's kind of how this whole circle sort of fell together, for those of you that were wondering. So, anyways, just in case anybody wanted a little bit of the background, but, before we jump in, so Steve's actually got a fantastic presentation. I'm just going to let him run with the presentation. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody to click that invite button at the top of the chat bar and tweet out that the amazing and wonderful Steve Wexler is going to be starting his presentation, and he'll be going for the duration, and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A at the end, and everybody will get a chance to ask all of your questions about data visualization and everything that you learned from Steve. So if everybody has invited their networks and shared everything that's going on, I think if any TLDcast was worthy of being shared, it's this one today, folks. So if you have the ability, click that invite button and share out to your LinkedIn network or your Twitter network, and get your colleagues and peers here as soon as possible. And of course, thank you, Craig. We'll be going into our Slack channel after the show for a little post TLDcast follow up if there's anything left remaining, if you guys have some questions or whatnot. So it's all good. And so I think with that, I'm going to kick it over to Steve now officially and say welcome everybody to Why You Should Visualize Data with Steve Wexler.
Hey, thank you so much. And I do want this to be informal, even though you've got this PowerPoint presentation in front of you. Also, this is the first time I'm doing this particular presentation, so we'll see how it goes. Bear with me. So, already gone through that. And as I've mentioned, the two smartest things I've ever done was thing one was marry my wife. The second thing was not write this book by myself. Way better book because I had two extremely strong colleagues that helped put this together. And I want to give you some of the kind of key findings of the book. And as you start to make it easier for people to see and understand your data, and for you to see and understand it, here's a bunch of things to look out for. Number one. Every workshop I give, I'll say this 3 or 4 times. Keep this in mind, important. Who is your audience? What's the message? And then it's taken me over 12 years to distill what you should be doing, but it's this. For the largest number of people, provide the greatest degree of understanding with the least amount of effort. Okay? Just keep that in mind. Now, in a moment, I'm going to show you an amalgam of every customer, every colleague, every client that I've served in data visualization. And see, we've got a running chat window here. How many people for whom you're creating work will say, look, these charts are great, but I just want to see the numbers. Show me the numbers. I want to see the numbers that are behind it. I really like seeing numbers. So if you could let me know in chat window, okay, there we go, 99%. There's a number right there. Anybody else have this? Gee, I'm comfortable with my spreadsheet. I want to see the numbers. So here is an amalgam of my various clients, and this is what they may be saying. You can have my spreadsheet when you pry it from my cold, dead hands. This is not new stuff, by the way, this notion of, hey, I want to see the numbers don't lie, I want to see what's behind stuff. How many of you have heard of a brilliant, and I mean brilliant, British statistician by the name of Francis Anscombe? And in particular, he created this thing called Anscombe's Quartet. If you've heard of it, let me know. If you haven't, type in the chat window and say, not a clue. There we go. I love Anscombe. Barbershop group. Nope. That's pretty good. You got some funny people on this thing here. Not
just wait. They're just warming up, Steve.
They're just warming up. Yeah, it's early Monday morning. Oh, okay. They'll be here all week. Got it. All right. So he was frustrated because he was trying to introduce data visualization, get his colleagues to appreciate how much more you can glean from it if you create charts and graphs. This is something that one of my co-authors in the book does a wonderful job in the opening chapter. It's an introduction to data visualization. It is a great, great chapter in the book, and I can say that without sounding like a jerk because I wrote virtually none of it. But Anscombe was frustrated because his colleagues would say, well, graphs are rough, but the actual numbers, and more importantly, the statistical analysis behind them, that's what you really want to do. So he came up with this quartet of numbers. And, those of you who are in the numbers may be looking at these things, trying to find patterns, etc. But you've got Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D. And if you do the same, quote unquote, rigorous statistical analysis on everything, you get exactly the same results. The average of X, the average of Y, with the correlation between the two, the variance, and the line, the linear regression, the line that best defines the relationship between X and Y. But if you plot the data, if you create a graph out of them, you get totally, totally different results. And you can't say that this data set is the same as this or this or this. I mean, there are different stories going on. I mean, who is this guy over here all by him or herself? Yet, had you done the quote-unquote rigorous statistical analysis, you would have missed this. So it was only in seeing the data. Now, what does this Anscombe's Quartet have to do with your own work? Well, I see stuff like this all the time. This is spreadsheet, and this is Lotus 123 or Excel circa 1990 type of stuff. You tell me. Look at this. This is 16 quarters worth of data. Which category had the highest sales overall, and which one had the lowest sales overall? Right, and I'm imagining people are starting to look at the numbers. Oh, look, technology, that's a high number here. Oh, that's a high number here. Oh, look, technology, that's pretty high. I'm going to guess technology is the highest. Then you're trying to figure out, well, which is the lowest one, and you may get it. But if I were then say, in what months was technology not the highest, and what months was office supplies not the lowest, man, this is going to take you a long time. But if instead you plotted the data like this, oh my gosh, yeah, I can see technology is spending most of the time up higher, except, this particular period here where it really dipped low, and office supplies is really low, except, hey, it came in second here and here. So it takes you 2-3 minutes to understand the data in the upper left, and it takes you 2-3 seconds to understand the data in the bottom right. Now, there's a colleague of mine. This guy is brilliant. Alberto Cairo. He's a polymath and polyglot. He teaches data journalism at the University of Miami. He's written 2 books, both of which I can recommend highly. One is called The Functional Art, and the other is called The Truthful Art. In any case, he's also a bit of an amateur archaeologist, and he discovered an ancient data set. And if he looked the pre-Anscomian way of looking at the data, he had this data set, and he decided to do the statistical analysis of everything. How many points are there? What's the average? What's of these things? Is there a correlation, etc.? And he really couldn't tell too much. It was only when he visualized the data that he learned that he had discovered the Datasaurus. So,
that's awesome.
It is, but you can't tell something just by looking at the numbers, and seeing the data can bring you so much. All right, so how do you do this so people really see it and understand it? Because Brent and Luis, I created some really horrible charts. So I want to discuss a little bit about our cognitive system, and particularly the visual aspect of our cognitive system. Okay. The good news is it's amazing. The bad news is it's really flawed. And so in a moment, I'm going to take you through some examples of where it's flawed. I'm going to ask people to put the equivalent of put your hand up or type into chat when you see the toothbrush. I'm going to show, when you see the I'm going to show you a scene of a bathroom. When you see the toothbrush, put your hand up. Okay. When you see the toothbrush, put your hand up. Okay. Or type in that you see it, you know, give me a +1 or whatever, etc. Okay. So I guess everybody saw this toothbrush. How many people saw this toothbrush? It's like no one I didn't see it either. You know, you're not
That's hilarious. I totally missed that.
I know, me too. And it's now this is not an example of hardwired behavior. This is an example of learned behavior. A lot of the things I'm going to discuss is your brain is hardwired to do certain things well, certain things poorly. It's how we survived in the savannah. This is something which is just learned behavior, but some of these other things aren't. And I'm going to show you a few things. Just we can't help but see things a certain way. This is was created by Professor Bo Lotto, and he's allowing use with permission. But our mind can't help but think that the gray slab on top, the gray tile on top, is darker than the white tile at the bottom. Now I'm saying gray on top, white on bottom. They're exactly the same color. They're not the same color at the midpoint that's there, but if I take this gray, it's exactly the same color. And why is this happening? And by the way, you could do this right now. You can, if you hold up your thumb, so it's blocking the mid part where the two tiles meet. Okay, thank you. Hold up your thumb over there. You're going to see, holy crap, those things are the same color. And it's because we're used to seeing things in nature that something that is in bright, direct light must be, and it's a certain color, well, it must be dark. And something that's in a shadow, and it looks like the bottom thing is in a shadow, it must be brighter than it actually is. But in fact, these things are exactly the same color. And we can't fight this. I can't, you know, get my mind not to see things this way. It's just the way it's been hardwired to look at the world. Other things as well. Fortunately, we don't see this nearly as much, but gradient fills or putting a background image behind data, those two, the word data is colored exactly the same. Now it looks purplish. Now it looks yellowish, and you're thinking, oh, he changed it while he was moving it down. It's just we can't help but perceive things this way. Same with this. We're seeing a background image behind two bars, and I'm now at the point where I can kind of see that both bars are the same size, but most people think, oh, the bar in the back must be longer because it's in the horizon and things farther away if they're that wide. But in fact, these things are exactly the same size. Okay, the good news is our cognitive system is, and there are a whole bunch of other things that Jeff and Andy have prepared that show the flaws that we have. The good news is our cognitive system is amazing. Now, I'll do this when I teach my workshops. I will ask people to count how many 9s there are on this thing. And a lot of people think, oh my God, what a pain in the ass. So you start going through this thing, and I'll have people do it, and it will take them a long time. And a bunch of people will say there are 12 9s. A bunch of people will say there are 13 9s. And a bunch of people will say there are 14 9s. It takes a long time, and people are not accurate with it. I can do something very subtle and make it a task which is that people perform better and faster if I do this. Boom. Let me highlight the things I want you to look at. Let me mute the things I don't want you to look at. And now everybody can quickly count the number of 9s. This is an example of what is called a pre-attentive attribute. You can't help but notice there's something different about the 9s because they are a different color than everything else. The pre-attentive attribute are things that you process immediately without you having to attend to it. It's stuff you notice without even noticing that you noticed it. Now, that's not the only pre-attentive attribute I could be using. I could have done this. and making it much easier for you to find the things I want you to find, the things that I think are important. So here we're using size on this. Now, here it becomes hard again because the 9s are a different color, but it's competing with all these other colors that are there. So it's a little difficult to look at what's going on here. Now, suppose I had some other questions with this, which was, how many 9s are there compared with the 6s and the 7s? And do the 9s come in first place, second place, or third place? I'd probably do it this way, which is, hey, I'll create a comparison of bars, making it really easy for people to compare the length of things. And even without the numbers in there, I can see that the 9 is about 2/3 the size of the 6s. So here are the things at your disposal. You've got color that brings attention to something, and length that allows you to make comparisons. So the things that are in your toolbox, or the arrows that are in your quiver, if we're going to combine lots of metaphors here, these are the pre-attentive attributes that are at your disposal. These are things that people will notice without even noticing that they notice them. And a question people often ask, well, which pre-attentive attributes are best? And in a moment, I'm going to ask everybody to take a little poll. You can either do it on your second screen of your computer if you have a second screen, or you can take out your phone and go someplace. But on the left, I have the boring bar chart. And on the right, I have the, wow, look how cool that visualization is on the right. Now, why do we often see the bar charts? Why is that such a popular way to display data? And I can get into a whole nother reason, but why do people really love the thing that's on the right? Let me just show you that people are really good at being able to guess the length of bars, and they're horrible at judging the area of circles. So here's what I'd like you to do. If you look at the slide, I want you to go to tabsoft.co/value. And I want you to guess what the value of D is and what the value of H is. If that bar on the top is 150, what is D? And if that big circle is 200, what is H? And let's see how you do. I don't know about you, Brent, but I've got the Jeopardy theme running in the back of my head as people are doing this.
It's the one sound effect that I haven't loaded into my soundboard yet, but I've needed it so many times. I'm going to have to get that done.
Yep, you're also, ooh, there you go, Jonathan. Yep, we've all got it stuck in our head. And that is how I slowly gain control over all the minds in the United States. The Jeopardy theme song. All right, let's see how people, we're going to see the results. I'm going to try to do this in real time with folks. All right. So this is as of yesterday. The results that were, whoops, sorry, wrong screen. I'm covering me up. There you go. As of yesterday, here are the 1,632 people who took this survey and what they thought. And take a look at what the takeaway is. Here's the distribution of values. I don't see how 5 people could have said this was only between 0 and 10, and how 5 people could have said that, gee, if that's 150, that's clearly less than half. But look at the distribution of the values that are here.
It's a classic bell curve, right?
Yes, it is. But most people are getting the right answer, which is 45. And then it's less and less. Look at the guesses and how wide the distribution is on guessing the size of H. That, first of all, most people don't get it right. But you get a lot of people that are grossly underestimating it, and a bunch of people are overestimating it. And we're just not very good at this type of thing. And shall we see how this group did? Why not? Let's see how many people took it and how they did. I'm going to try to refresh this in real time.
Oh, this is going to be embarrassing. I totally missed the first one.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. We love you. I'm waiting for something to appear. There we go. Close this. And let's change this to the last 3 days. Okay. A lot of people, not getting it right, but way more spread out, and most people are coming pretty close. I'm going to guess most people chose 50, which was there, which is why we've got that the value that's happening there. We probably should have made whole numbers. In any case, we in fact chose something that was pretty hard. I could have stacked the deck. In general, people do pretty well with this, and they're kind of all over the place with this. So what is a data visualization? I like this. This is a quote from Andy Kirk, who wrote a book called Data Visualization, although he wrote it with an S because he's a British guy. The representation and presentation of data that exploits our visual perception abilities in order to amplify cognition. I think that's really good. Now, that doesn't mean circles are bad. It just means they're not really good for exact comparisons. Does anybody know what this is a chart of? Anyone know? Go ahead and type into chat. Let me know what you think this is a chart of. Take a guess. Population of state representatives, measles, the people per square mile, stuff like that. But most people, they're seeing the big blob for California and they're thinking population. But then you look at Washington and Oregon. I really like measles as a guess. Anybody else have a guess? Okay, truth be told, I have no idea what this is a chart of. I made this. I made this chart 6 years ago. I forgot to put a label up at the top, but I know whatever it's about, way more of it is happening on the West Coast than elsewhere in the United States, and that's valuable. So, kind of getting back to these pre-attentive attributes. Here are 3 ways of representing the numbers 37 and 75. A is 37 and B is 75. Let's take a look at this. People are great at seeing that B is about twice as big as A. In fact, there are some people whose OCD is so well defined, they will go, oh, B is a little bit more than twice as big. Very few people are going to get this one right. They're going to say this is about 1.5 times as big. They're going to say it's 50% bigger. Holy crap, they're so off. It's 200% bigger. It's 100% bigger, however you want to look at it. That thing on the bottom right, I don't know anyone on the planet who will say that B is twice as blue as A. So now we're great at seeing it's a different color. And in fact, we're phenomenal at even the most slight gradations in color differences. We just can't quantify that. But the length of bars, we're phenomenal at it. Okay, so a couple more things. So let's go back and visit our, I just told you how great bars are and for comparing things, but I'm going to show you a great use of color. And here's how you may be able to wean your colleagues, your customers, your boss into recognizing the potency of data visualization. I'm going to give you another little task to try here. Here is a listing of product subcategories broken down by region. So, I got the product subcategories here, and I got the regions over here. I've got 17 subcategories. I've got 4 regions. That means I've got 68 different values here. I want you to tell me the combination of region and subcategory that has the lowest profit and the one that has the highest profit. Lowest profit and the highest profit. See if you can find it. As the Jeopardy theme song goes off in people's heads yet again. So we're just trying to make it easy for someone who's looking at the profitability of their organization to see where's the most profit, where's the least profit. Anyone want to try to find which profit was the lowest and which is the greatest? There a problem? You're saying,
Oh yeah, no, don't worry
there we
about it.
go.
We're not
No,
gonna
okay,
we're not gonna take it. We're not gonna take a halftime, Craig. It's all good.
Oh, okay. So we have someone saying tables in the east. Ooh, that is a low number. And binders in the west. Binders in the west. That's a pretty high number over there, but it's not as high as this number. But if I do this, I call this the gateway drug to data visualization. It's called a highlight table in Tableau. It's called conditional formatting in Excel. Bam! Even people way in the back of the room, not that we have people in the back of a room, but if you're doing this in a large lecture hall or something like that, they can't read the numbers. They can see, look, dark orange, dark blue. By the way, there's a reason for not using red and green that I'll get into in a minute. And I can see in general, tables they kind of suck. Look at all that orange over there, indicating negative values. And I can also see that binders and binders accessories are really doing quite well. So this usually gets people who love their numbers to say, hey, this is pretty cool. You just made it a lot easier for me to find some interesting stuff in there. Now, let me show you another one. But I'm going to combine it with bars, and I think you'll like it. This is a data visualization showing the propensity of a certain politician, who will remain nameless, to tweet. When a certain politician likes to tweet, the day of the week and the hour of the day. Okay? I'm not going to say who it is. The fact that I chose an orange continuous palette is just a coincidence. Now, if I put this marginal histogram around it, you get a secondary insight into it, which is I can see, okay, the most popular time is 9 p.m. The least popular time is 8 a.m. So if this person is tweeting about you at 8 a.m., this person who shall not be named must be really pissed off. But do you kind of now see the effectiveness? It's hard not to see the 90 that's over there, but a really good combination of using the highlight table to make certain things pop out, but also doing the exact comparison with the bars. So whenever I see a highlight table or scatter plot, I usually like to surround them with a marginal histogram. In data visualization, and I'm going to get to resurrect some stuff from when Luis and Brent and I were back at the e-learning guild. Two key things, if I had to distill, when I do a workshop, I'll discuss 6 key things in dashboard development. We don't have time for that today. I'm going to do 2 key things, and one is avoid clutter. Okay. That is not a good data visualization right there. And in fact, in the book, we would give this something called a screaming cat. In the big book of dashboards, if you're thumbing through it, we wanted an easy way for you to know, should I be making this thing or should I be avoiding it? And the problem with this thing is I have no idea what I should be looking at, what's important to me. It's just too many colors, too many numbers, it's noise. We think we're saying, well, look how accurate everything is. Can't take it in. Suppose you are really interested in knowing how copiers and faxes are doing. It's going to take you forever to figure that out. So this gets a screaming cat. But if I just do this and focus on the thing that you're interested in, and you might have something that's interactive, bam, I can see it went from being one of the worst performers to the 4th best. So you should always be asking, what can I remove to make it simpler? Okay, e-learning guild circa 2007. I think this predates your participation, Brent. So you do not get blamed for this. You could have.
It's Luis's fault.
Yeah, exactly. You could have prevented this thing from being published. Okay, but this is the popularity of various learning modalities, and we're trying to compare Canada. United States and Canada versus all other countries. And there is so much that's wrong with this. And I remember my thought process was, how can I make this thing clearer? Oh, I know. I'll put these thick green rules in between. That'll help see instant messaging from online mentoring to portals. And how am I going to distinguish international from USA and Canada? Oh, well, I'll shade these things. Well, let me put some more shading behind the things. Oh, well, let me have decimal places, because no good reason for having decimal places, by the way. It's a survey. It means it's an approximation. It's going to be plus or minus 3-4% anyway. There are so many things that are wrong with this. By the way, I could open this up for discussion, have people chat in it and say, hey, tell me everything that's wrong with it. But, we only have another 20 minutes and we'd run out of time. So well, how do you make this thing clearer? And by reducing the complexity. So here's how I would present that data now, which is super easy to compare the green dots with the gray. Green dot is USA and Canada. Gray dot is other region, sorting it from high to low. I can compare the green dots with each other. I can compare the green dots with gray dots. Super easy. Stressful? Reduction of the stress. And so there is kind of the before and after. So I think I owe the e-learning guild a makeover or two, given that they did, believe in data visualization and dashboards very early on. So, all right, other things to be aware of with this: the avoiding clutter, white space, aka negative space. That is a difficult to parse paragraph. And any of you who have studied desktop publishing know that there are certain rules or pointers or suggestions to say, well, how big should this font be, and how much space there should be between the heading and the paragraph, and how much space should there be between each line, and how much spacing or leading, because you used to put lead between the typeset words, should there be between the different paragraphs, etc. Well, the same thing applies to dashboard development. This dashboard, in addition to a bunch of the charts just not being rendered correctly in the way the stack bar charts are being done, there's no breathing room between the elements or among the elements, and it's hard to see where one end and another begins. And here's the recasting of this. Much better charts, but also just the breathing space allows you to see the 4 different components pretty easily. So there's the before version, there's the after version. Okay. The other thing is, with this whole notion of what can you remove to make it easier for people to see, is that very small things can get notice. You're all looking at Ohio right now. If you're not, texting or whatever, you can't help but see that there's a red dot next to Ohio. It's the smallest thing that's there. Isn't it funny? You missed the toothbrush in the bathroom, which was the biggest thing that's there, and the smallest thing that's here, you're seeing. And it's just this little subtle thing that says, for whatever reason, I want you to pay attention to Ohio. So keep that in mind. Little things can go a long way. All right. The second key takeaway, number 2, is the use and abuse of color. Jeff and I, we don't see eye to eye on everything, and that's why the book is way better, because we'd have debates, we'd have arguments. We tried to capture them in the book. We're doing a live stream tomorrow called Chart Chat Live, where we're going to try to resurrect the debates we had. But, when you start out with the idea, I want to use color, and you have this, gee, I want to have everything color coded and organized, and this is your idea for using color, but invariably people end up with more like something like this. So this is page 15 of the big book of dashboards. If you can understand this is everything you need to know about color. Unfortunately, people really tend to abuse it. Sequential, diverging, categorical, highlight, and alert color. Sequential color, the darker things in this case means more longer life expectancy. The lighter things mean less. Divergent is when there's some logical midpoint. Here's the midpoint. Here are the things that are less than the midpoint. Here are the things that are greater than the midpoint. Categorical colors means, gee, I'm coloring this by region. All the African nations are red. All the European nations are yellow. This is where most people get into a problem, by the way. They use way too many categorical colors. Highlight color is, hey, for whatever reason, I want you to be looking at China. And here, for whatever reason, I want you to be looking at these countries, and I want you to be stressed out about it. Now, red as an alerting color is something that that I, in Western culture, have gotten used to. It means exactly the opposite in China. That you think green good, red bad, flip it 180 degrees if this is China. So this means, there's a problem here, something to look out for. In China, they say, hey, this is great. Okay. If you look at the dashboards that are in the big book of dashboards, most of them only have 2, 3, I think, or 4 colors, categorical colors. Great use of color right here. What's the most important thing? The particular professor that we're interested in. We're going to make that blue, make everything else gray. Another dashboard that comes from Matt Chambers, the what if analysis, the impact of raising the minimum wage, just 2 colors. Super simple to bring in. Okay, we're not going to do this right now, but want to show you something that we'll do in our workshops, and Andy Concrete did this with 500 people. He asked half the room to close their eyes, and he showed them a chart. Then he asked the other half to do it. So we had people standing up. Half of them were looking at a chart, and here was what the first half saw. And he gave them like 6-7 seconds to take this in. Rentals by day of week. Okay. And then he had those people close their eyes, then had a bunch of other people look at this thing, which we see all the time. Hey, there are 7 days of the week. Let's come up with a different color for each day. Then he asked the first group, what conclusions did they reach? And someone will say, hey, rentals were less on weekends. Saturday and Sundays had way less. And then the second group of people, most people couldn't come up with anything. So the people on the left that are looking at all this color, it's like, what am I supposed to be looking at? What am I focusing on? What's going on here? And on the right, it's, oh, that's a different color. Oh, that's interesting. They're weekends and they're less. Effective use of color to convey the message. Stuff on the left may look cool. Stuff on the right helps people understand the data way better. The other thing to look out for was when I did that highlight table, I didn't do it in red and green. And that is because roughly 1 out of 10 men suffer from red-green color deficiency. See those, the dark green and the dark red on the left? Some of you may not be able to. Here's the dark green and here's the dark red. This is what they look like when you put it into a colorblind simulator, and what someone who suffers from red-green color vision deficiency, they're not going to be able to see it.
I'm only mildly colorblind, and it's not in the red-green range that it impacts.
Interesting. Me. Then you have the most common forms of color blindness is red-green color vision deficiency, where the things tend to look the same. And it affects maybe 1% of women and 10% of men, roughly. This is why often recommend using this colorblind-friendly blue and orange palette. But you may get pushback. People may say, no, I like red and green, and everybody knows what they mean. What can you do about it? So we'll discuss that. By the way, it isn't just red and green. It's also green and oranges. And there's also purples and fuchsias. So here is, oh, hey, Brent, are you or any of your colleagues there, people online right now, any of you NFL, National Football League fans at all?
I believe we have lots of NFL football fans in the chat. Yes.
Okay. 2 years ago, some genius at the NFL decided to have the Buffalo Bills play the New York Jets, nationally televised game. And they decided, let's have the Jets wear head-to-toe green. Let's have the Buffalo Bills wear head to toe red, and there were a whole bunch of guys watching the game going, why is the same team beating up on itself? So in any case, I hate red, yellow, and green as traffic light colors. I think a colleague of mine said there's no way to unugly them, but if you are forced to do this, there are things that you can do to make this work. One thing is you can darken the red, you can lighten the green. And so here's the color binds. There's the traffic light colors modified at the top, and there are the modification. If you darken the red, you lighten the green. This is what it would look like to someone with red-green color vision deficiency. Or we can add a little blue to the green, which I've done here, and really make the thing stand out. So you've got your traffic light colors reading at the top, and it will work with someone with color vision deficiency. And you do a stacked bar chart, and you can see, can people see that there are actually two different bars here? And this works extremely well with this. Okay. Another key point, and I'm going to want to leave a little time for Q&A. I know there are a bunch of questions going by, and I'd like to be able to address them, but I'm kind of focusing on the presentation. Nothing quite works as well as inserting your user into the data visualization. You want people to use your dashboards that you're creating. Somehow make the dashboard about them, where they can identify with something about them. This it's not a bad tendency. I'm not trying to say this is about narcissism, but I first was alerted to this when I was working with a major consulting company. They were doing a big global survey of HR people, and they created the first year out. They created a demographics dashboard, something that it just said, here are the demographics of the people who took this big ass survey that we've conducted. And it was really there just to let people know, no findings, no conclusions, just here's who took the survey. This next year, they decided, well, that was really boring. We need to have something which is really interesting to get people engaged. So they created something that looks like this. And it's like, it's going to take you 2-3 minutes to parse what this thing is about. We've got a Mondrian-like looking thing up here. We've got pack bubbles over here. I don't know what's up with the traditionalists, but they're red. They must be really angry. And I look at something like this, and it gets there we go. That'll wake people up. A screaming cat. It's not the demographics of the survey are not that important. And I'll discuss how you can make this boring survey really interesting. Person who took it. We're going to get the cat again. Sorry about that. And that is to appeal to people's selves. Anyone know who this guy is? If you recognize him, type him into chat.
I just can't think of his name.
Oh, that's pretty good. It's not Red Skelton, but I kind of like that. It does kind of look like Red Skelton.
A little bit.
That is Mayor Ed Koch, K-O-C-H. He was the mayor of New York City from 1977 to 1985, and he had a key catchphrase. Does anyone know what that catchphrase was?
Oh, man.
How am I doing? People love to know that. So here's how this could work with dashboards and visualization. How much older or younger am I than others? How's the store I managed performing compared with all others? How did my session compared with others? How is my salary compared with others? Ooh, we may be looking at some stuff that will ring a bell with Brent and with Luis. How common is my birthday? How much will I save if I use a genetic drug? Or how did people like me respond to this survey? Oh, now I'm interested in the demographic survey. All right, so this has proven to be a very effective way to get people to try to save money and conserve. A power company, utility company in Canada was, not in Canada, in California, was trying to warn people, hey, if you don't conserve, we're going to have brownouts this summer. And people really weren't heeding it. And then they started doing this. How many of you are now seeing utility bills that look like this, where here's you, here's all your neighbors, and here are your efficient neighbors, the ones that you want to emulate. I'm seeing stuff like this all the time, and it's trying to put good peer pressure on people to say, hey, you know what? Gee, there are others who are doing a lot better job. Maybe I can be doing that. And it is to a degree changing people's behavior. Let me show another example of this, how I can take something which is kind of boring and make it fascinating. This is a histogram or a distribution of ages in the United States as of maybe 4 or 5 years ago. How do you read this? There are roughly 3.95 million people who are newborns. There are roughly 4.7 million people who are 23-year-olds, and there are not many people who are 100 or more. To most people I know, that's boring stuff, unless you're a data geek and you go, whoa, what happened here? And then you have people trying to guess what happened. Why are so many people? Why did this thing collapse after the age
66? People just drop off, it seems like.
And there are two reasons for that. And I'm going to open this up for one thing, then we're going to do something interactive, and then I'm going to have to, I'm not going to be able to get to the back end of the presentation, but that's just, people are just going to have to buy the book.
There you go.
Ooh, this is good. Mark Grant has I don't know the answer, by the way. I've heard two very good arguments for this. Baby boomer generation. So what happened is that you had that anyone who is 65 and older, or 66 and older, is part of the baby boom generation. So you had a lot more births in the United States. So that's why there were just fewer people around. The other possible explanation is, Chris, you've got it, which is people retire and then they die. And they're, it's so depressing, but apparently for a lot of people, they retire and a kind of a purpose that was in their life is missing. Okay. I want to show you what happens when we make this thing about you. So let me see if I can get this thing up and running. And Brent, you are going to take one for the team here.
All right, I can do that.
This thing. Okay, and I'm going to let you know right now that this is depressing. Okay, so this is the same data, but I'm now going to try to make it about you. And so if you are 40 years old, you are older than 53% of Americans. Brent, are you willing to give up your age, or would you prefer not?
No, 51.
51. You. By the way, darling, you look marvelous. Absolutely
thank you very much.
Marvelous. So you are 51 years old. You are older than 69.1% of, oops, sorry, don't want to make you older than you are. But hold on, let's make it.
Oh, there we go.
You Refresh. Are older than 69.5% of male Americans. Hold on, I will take one for the team. I just turned 60.
Yeah, and you look fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is really depressing. I am older than 81.8% of male Americans. It's like, crap, look at all these people to the left and look at these people afterwards. The only solace I've taken in this is that my brother, who is lorded over me, that he, when we were kids, hey, I'm older than you are. Yeah, well, he's 5 years older than I am. How does it feel now, Rick? Yeah, but people want to, they want to explore this. They want to get involved with this. They start putting their partner's age in, their kid's age, their parents' age. By the way, do not put your parents' age in on this thing. Yeah, I had a friend at the gym I hang out with. He was 84. He was super depressed about this. But just to finish up the notion of this, and with salary data, this, hey, here's me and here's everybody else, is a really effective way to get people to gauge their performance, to possibly, if they're doing great, keep them doing great. If they're not performing as well as they might be, performing better. So here is showing, an individual salary versus lots of other people. Here is, how is the store that I manage compared to all other stores? And I can see where overall I'm kind of in the middle of the pack, but I'm doing really well here and up here. and not so well in terms of convenience and cleanliness. Maybe these are areas that I want to improve on. And just one more notion that I'm going to open up for questions, which is the notion of comparing with an aggregate and comparing with individual data points. I'm a big fan of if I can get at individual data points, but here's my salary compared with the average of everybody else. And why is my dot here? Because theoretically I'm part of Generation X. I think we made it very clear that I'm a baby boomer. In any case, here I am. And well, how pissed off should I be? Here's me versus the average of everybody else. And if I show this as disaggregated data, it's like, oh my God, this is exactly the same thing. Here's my salary. It's, roughly $84,000. And I'm going, well, I guess it's not so low. And now I see, wow, look how much lower I am than everybody else. So,
that changes everything.
I know it does. It does. It just doesn't look so bad on the left, but it's exactly the same data. All right. I don't want to, there was more stuff to get into, but we kind of ran out of time here. So next time around, or maybe we'll do a part 2 that's going on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Deborah would love a part 2. And I think a lot of folks here would absolutely love to hear from you again, Steve. It would be fantastic to have you back. But let me just toss out a question real quick here. And then I don't think anybody will mind if we go over just a minute or two. There was a question in the chat about KPIs for learning and how you might visualize that. I mean, I know that's not specifically what you deal with, but maybe some folks in the chat can, think this through a little bit. And some of the things that Steve has brought to your attention this morning regarding visualization, how would you guys do it? And what are some of the KPIs that you're going after and in the best ways to look at that? Or do you have something off the top of your head that you've done for a client or so, Steve, that might be similar to the learning world?
Certain KPIs, what I'll often see is, gee, how did we do this year versus last year? Or how are we doing this week versus last week? And then you'll have an arrow pointing up or an arrow pointing down. And, the arrow pointing up, it's up 10.2. And the arrow pointing down it's minus 1.7. The problem with that is, okay, you're letting people know here are the things that are up, here are the things that are down.
Yeah.
But how much bigger is 10.7 than 4.3 than 2.1? And it's much more effective for people to see those things as just little bars, in a little column. And I have a whole example that will. So a big part of what the book is about, and so here's the plug.
All right.
Big Book of Dashboards is there's a website associated with it, and the book is now in its 3rd printing. By the way, it's doing quite nicely. Available on Amazon, and today is Cyber Monday, so
how convenient!
You have to buy it online, and it is hey. It consists of a whole bunch of different scenarios. If you're tasked with this data problem, you've got this data, here's a good way to show it, and here's a good way to show it, and why. You are undoubtedly going to run into similar things to what you're trying to do in the learning world and in the performance world and keeping track of things. So hey, that's really similar to what I have to do in reporting KPIs. And we'll discuss very often, well, here's how you often see it, and this is why it may not be as effective as it could be. So I'm pretty comfortable that you're going to find at least 4 or 5 things that you're going to look at and go, that's applicable to what I'm doing, even though it may not be exactly about learning. There are a couple of sports visualizations in the book that have really nothing to do about sports. They have to do about performance. How did I perform most recently? Yesterday versus how do I perform recently versus how did I perform over the whole season? It could be how many calls did I make yesterday versus how many calls did I make last week versus how many calls did I make this year? It's a very long-winded answer, but I think you'll find certain things that are helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everybody's got to probably run off to their next meetings, and I'm sure you're busy as well. I just wanted to wrap things up and just say thank you so much, Steve, for sharing and getting everybody a little bit more interested and excited about how they can do their data visualizations better. And can we talk you into coming back for a part 2?
It would be my pleasure. Thanks so much. Would love to get to the stuff that we left behind us, because it will change your world.
It
Well,
will. We know this for sure. Yeah, no, this is great. We're getting a lot of great positive feedback in the chat. So it's a very, very, very good sign. So we'll work on getting you back maybe in mid-January, something like that, if you're available, if that's okay.
Sounds great. Okay.
All right,
thanks so much. Would love to do it.
All right. Thanks, Steve. I'm going to go ahead and close out your video now, and I'll wrap up the show. All right.
Okay. I've got to bail. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yep. Take care, Steve. Good to see you. All right, everybody. Fantastic show again. I am super excited. So much fun to see Steve and to hear about it. You guys get out there and buy his book. Hit up Amazon on Cyber Monday and buy yourself a little gift for the holidays. I think it's well warranted. So get in there and buy yourself something. But before you do that, get out there and train somebody today. And don't forget to learn something else new. Since you've learned something new already, go for learning 2 things today instead of just 1. Everybody take care. Have a great day. Yeah, and jump into the Slack channel and let's have your questions over there. If you want to talk KPIs for learning and how we might visualize that more deeply, let's jump into the Slack group and let's talk about that. I think it'll be a ton of fun. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out and sharing TLDcast with your friends. And thanks for all of the humor today, too. You guys are awesome. Everybody take care. Have a great day. And tomorrow, don't forget, we have the Leadership Day and Seeds of Insight. I will be traveling to Orlando for Corporate Learning Week, but Bill and Michelle will be driving that by themselves for the first time. So you guys give them a little support and a little love and hang out and help them get through their first solo TLD cast. And with that, I'll definitely let you guys go. Everybody take care. Have a great day.
Aha!